Welcome to Simply Robotix, the podcast, a podcast exploring the animation industry one episode at a time. I'm your host, Monique. You can find me on all social media platforms at Simply Robotix. Robotics is spelled ROBOTIX. When listening to the show, use the hashtag Simply Robotix Pod to join in on the conversation. This show predominantly is going to be broken up into 1 to 2 topics, an animation news recap, and that's predominantly the basis of the show. I will have some interviews, and I do intend on releasing the diverse tunes audio, the panel audio, in the future as well. But this is going to be a short, episodic podcast experience for sure. Our first topic is why podcasting. So essentially, I decided to start podcasting as being an extension of my website, simplyrobotix.com. Over there, I post weekly about things happening in the animation industry. I do animation highlights. That's one of my posts where I would highlight animated short films or trailers for short films or gaming stuff. I also have done commercial, highlight some commercials that are just animated, and there's predominantly those things. I do have career tips. I have some posts that's just I've had one post, I'm sorry, that was just tips of art school versus online schooling. I do event recaps. Nickelodeon recently came to School of Visual Arts, so I did a very thorough recap of that. They were there for they did 2 events, and I have, when I go to animation festivals and things like that, I do movie reviews. So the idea of the podcast is just to be able to expand a bit on that, because I know that I also do some time-lapse videos on YouTube where I talk a bit personally on it, but I know people's attention span, especially when it comes to YouTube, it's they're not sitting through more than 5 minutes of the video. And especially if it's a time-lapse, I feel like they'd want the time-lapse to be even shorter than 5 minutes. I do post also on Instagram and Twitter, but I don't do IGTV. I don't have extensive IG story videos. So I thought a podcast would be a way to have a more intimate feeling with me and with listeners and people who support Simply Robotix, but then also to just expand upon some of the blog posts that I have as well. Also, I just really enjoy podcasting. I have a completely unrelated podcast to animation that I've been doing for about 4.5 years. I listen to a bunch of podcasts. I'm looking to shift, or I have been trying to shift more into animation and film-based podcasts, because I predominantly have been listening to culture, pop culture, my friends. I listen to, I would say, some hip hop music ones. I've listened to some book review ones. And yeah, I'm just trying to get a bit more into the animation. But as I was doing that, it was out, to be honest, it was kind of rough making it through some of the podcasts, and I'm not going to say which ones, but it was, and that just led me to be well, why is this kind of difficult? Why is this challenging for me to continue listening to just to make it through an episode? And it's because I feel like most of the voices, when it comes to, especially if you're an artist and you watch a lot of tutorials, it's this same kind of voice that you hear. It's that voice doesn't really change when you start going into podcasting. You're still doing the art thing. So I realized that there's a void here, and I want to be a part of the people that's filling this animation podcast void, audibly at least, right? So like I said, these episodes are going to be pretty short because it's only me, and unless there's a guest or unless it's the diverse tunes audio, then it'll be a longer episode. Our second topic is a question I received in an email from this young lady named AB. She's a part of the animation project here in New York City. She came to the official first Diverse Tunes panel back in September, and she just had a really good experience, and I was very appreciative that she reached out to me and asked me this in an email. She asked me, how did I get started in animation? I was about 11 or 12. This was in 8th grade. And I was in art class, and we took a trip to the Museum of Moving Image that's here in Queens, New York. And in there was this exhibit where, and it's still there, it's been updated, if you will. It's even cooler now, but at the time it blew my mind. There was a stop motion animation station. So there was some Madeline puzzle pieces, and you could take pictures with they had an overhead camera, so you'd move the pieces around, you take snapshots, and then after you finished, I think it only made you take 12 pictures, And when you finished, you got to play everything back, and it was like a stop motion animation that you just did. Now, I had always been into computers as a child, and at this time, it was like Toy Story was like amazing, and there was Ants was out, A Bug's Life was out, all these films were out. And I was like, oh, I think I want to do this. Like, I came home from the trip and I told my mom, like, I want to do animation and I want to do computer animation because I had that experience at the museum. So that was in junior high. So I ended up going to Bayside High School, also here in Queens. As an art major, I got into that program. While in high school, all throughout high school, I was doing after school art classes, weekend art classes, summer school art classes type of thing. Not summer school, but I was doing a lot of art classes at the Jamaica Arts Learning Center that's also in Queens. I took art classes at Cooper Union, the Whitney Museum, and also the Museum of Modern Art all throughout high school, all because I knew like I wanted to do animation. And my mom, very real, she was like, well, you're not going away to college, so like, you know, you're gonna have to figure something out. What's the best school in New York for you to do this animation thing that you want to do? And at the time, and it's still true, SVA, the School of Visual Arts, was the best school in New York, and it's one of the best schools on the East Coast in the United States to do computer animation. So thankfully, with all those schoolings, I got into SVA. I majored in computer art. The official department name is computer art, animation, and VFX, and that's what I got my BFA in. I went into the school wanting to be an animator, but throughout my schooling, by the time I was a senior, I was like, I wanted to do motion capture on my thesis project, which I cringe thinking about it now because of like how it looks and all sorts of stuff like that. But my thesis project had a heavy motion capture component where I was able to get two ballroom dancers to put on mocap suits, and I took my technical challenge was to take the data from the suits and apply it to these flowers I created, and that was like my thesis project. And I just really love that process so much. I was like, well, I don't really want to be an animator anymore. I want to work in like motion capture and do that type of stuff. And unfortunately for me, a lot of the studios in New York at the time that did motion capture were closing down within the first like 2 years that I graduated. And that sucked because I was like, okay, well, now like what do I do? There's like no real places for me to work that I want to work at. I was aware over like the 2 years that I graduated that I wasn't a strong enough animator to be hired as an animator. It was also very difficult to get internships because companies just wanted to take the best recent grads. I understand that. So they weren't really even trying to groom an intern that they could have, like, type of thing. So that leads me to say that I worked so many odd jobs. Like, I was a finisher at this production design company, meaning that the artist was like not necessarily redesigning but tweaking labels for like salad dressing or candies, mints, all sorts of stuff, toothpaste and mouthwash. And I was a person that had to take the labels off and clean the item and reapply the labels with the new designs, and then someone else photographed them. I did that for like a year. I worked in retail. I did a lot of mentoring and volunteering for all sorts of art festivals, and I did Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week a few times. But the thing that really brought me all back, I would say, was I did an internship for the New York International Children's Film Festival, and I was interning there for about a year. Now they are, let's just say like a sister company. No, are they a sister company? I want to say they're like a child. I think they're a child company to G Kids. G Kids is an animation distributor. They distribute a lot of Miyazaki films, Studio Ghibli. I actually need to figure out how that's correctly pronounced, but they do all those films and they do a lot of North America distribution for Cartoon Saloon films as well. So anywho, so I was interning for that festival, and throughout that year there, I was being enlightened about I can work in animation and still be very close to animators and directors and creatives and stuff like that without actually being an animator myself. And that was good because I already knew that through the two internships that I had and trying to do freelance work, that I don't really like being told what to do in that sense. Like, I don't like having to report to someone artistically like that. So knowing that I could possibly work in production management and be a part of the animation making process, but just still, like I said, not as an artist, that was like, okay, so now like, how do I get there? How do I do these things? And I was just really thankful that the people that I worked with or I interned for at the film festival were definitely guiding me so that I can get into a studio and putting me in contact with people so that I can get into get interviews and just get knowledge about becoming a production assistant. Um, I would say also in 2012 and 2014, I went to CTN, that is the Cartoon Talent Network, Creative Talent Network. Forgive me, I should know what that means. But it's this big animation convention. It's like the biggest, specifically, animation convention in the United States. It happens over in Burbank. I went those 2 years, and there I gained a lot of knowledge about shifting from an artist or just any career over into production management and what that looked like and hearing people's stories and things like that. So I was really confident that that's the avenue I wanted to go in. So long story short, which was almost 3 years ago now at the time of this recording, I did a movie review for Sifa East, that's here in New York, about the Peanuts movie. Blue Sky made the Peanuts movie. And then I showed up to a recruiting event that Blue Sky had. They were looking for technical directors and like all these technical positions in the studio. And I just showed up. I'm like, hey, I know you're not looking for a production assistant or anything like that, but I know y'all are here and I wanted to really just give my resume to you. I had been following Blue Sky for like a year with these talent recruiters, actually just like talking to them and giving them my business cards or whatever, my resumes. I had emailed them throughout the year and I wasn't hearing any response, but I still showed up to this recruiting event that happened in New York, and I gave them my stuff. And lo and behold, within like a month, they called me like, oh, we actually have this PA position that opened up, and like we have your stuff here. And they definitely did look me up online, and they saw that I wrote about the Peanuts movie, and they brought that up in my interview. And I ended up getting the position at Blue Sky, and then I was there for a couple years, and I left early in the spring this year, and now I'm doing a whole bunch of things, trying to get back into an animation studio, such as starting this podcast, such as starting the Diverse Tunes panels, and a whole host of other things, it seems like. So, AB, I hope I answered your question. That's how I got started in the animation industry. So now we're going to get into some animation news. It came out this month that Netflix is planning to conquer family entertainment. Now, this was a Variety article written by Brent. He says the streaming giant has begun developing and producing more than a dozen shows, limited series, and feature films while giving A-list filmmakers such as Guillermo del Toro and Glenn Keane the chance to make their dream projects. In the process, Netflix hopes to popularize the concept of must-binge entertainment among the pre-adolescent set, as much as it previously encouraged their parents to consume whole seasons of The Crown and House of Cards in a single sitting. So what was really exciting is that this particular week that I'm recording this, LaShawn Thomas, a Netflix Twitter account, Strong Black Lead, announced that he's working on this like anime series over at Netflix. And I'm like super excited and super proud because LaShawn Thomas is like, y'all gonna have to look him up because if y'all don't know, maybe one day I'll be able to get him on here. But he's like a really amazing animator, and he's been doing a lot for a long time independently in terms of like side projects. So to hear that he has a deal with Netflix is very inspiring, and it's very hopeful because that means that a lot of, I would say, people, and specifically Black people, people of color and specifically Black people, are going to have opportunities to make some really, really interesting content. And it's exciting that Netflix is taking the chance because that's such a big thing in the industry, and not even the animation industry, but as you know, with film and entertainment, like people are not trying to take chances on new stuff. That's why we keep getting reboots. That's why we keep getting sequels of things. So Netflix, I know, is really, really on to something with things like this, and I'm super hopeful and excited for that. The second bit of animation news I have is this month, Blue Sky releases the Spies in Disguise trailer. Now, this was the film that I predominantly worked at while at Blue Sky, so I was so happy to see the trailer. I'm like, finally, like it's really coming out, like I I worked in the story department at Blue Sky, so I did get to see some of the first imagings of the film. So in the trailer, it was nice to see some of the storyboards that still made it to the trailer, and I'm just really excited for the people that are working on it. I'm excited for the directors. I'm excited for the whole studio because this is truly the beginning of like a renaissance era for Blue Sky, and they have, I mean, we'll see how things go, but they really have at least two films for sure. I know that with the whole Disney buyout or stuff that will be able to be made, and it's going to be the beginning of new things for the studio visually. So the Spies in Disguise trailer, go check it out. When it comes out in September 2019, make sure you stay in the credits and you try and look for my name. And I don't know if you're quick enough to take a picture, but it's going to be so exciting. Like I'm just happy and I can't wait. But speaking of trailers and animated movies, the Wreck-It Ralph film is coming out this month. So I should be seeing it so that I can do a movie review on the website. And I guess I'll talk about it on the next episode. I think it's a cute name. It's like Ralph Breaks the Internet, right? And it reminds me a lot of the Emoji Movie with the whole, all these social media icons and things like that. But one thing that's been pretty exciting is the Disney princesses and just seeing the power of the internet, specifically Twitter, in getting Tiana's hair redone and done appropriately. There was, between Tiana's hair and her skin complexion and Mulan's skin complexion and Pocahontas' skin complexion, it just seemed like there was a lot that was possibly maybe not going on there. And I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I may need to rewatch the first one just to get my mind familiar with all the characters again. Lastly, the thing that I am really so impatiently waiting for is Sony's Into the Spider-Verse. Like, I'm following so many people that worked on that film on Twitter, and every time that they tweet or say something about it, if there's a new clip or anything, or Peter Ramsey, he's the director, he talks about it, I can't wait anymore for this to come out. And I think we're starting to hit the 4 week countdown. So I don't know. Like, am I gonna see it the Friday it comes out? I think so. I just really can't wait. And look at that. So I almost made 20 minutes, which is great. But we've come to the end of the episode. So thank you for listening. This is the first episode. I know that you're going to share this with people because why wouldn't you do that, right? So don't forget that you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Simply Robotix. Simply Robotix spelled SimplyRobotix. And a hashtag for the show is Simply Robotics Pod. I want to thank you again for listening. You can find all things about me and the show and just everything that goes on the site, the diverse tunes panel, all that sort of stuff at simplyrobotics.com. Okay, take care. Bye.